Hey, CNFers. Batting leadoff today is Goucher College's MFA in Nonfiction. The Goucher MFA is a 2-year low residency program. Online classes let you learn from anywhere, while on-campus residencies allow you to hone your craft with accomplished mentors who have Pulitzer Prizes and best-selling books to their names. The program boasts a nationwide network of students, faculty, and alumni, which has published 140 books and counting. You'll get opportunities to meet literary agents and learn the ins and outs of the publishing journey. Visit goucher.edu/nonfiction to start your journey now. Take your writing to the next level and go from hopeful to published in Goucher College's MFA program for nonfiction. Yes. Riff. Oh, that's nice. That's real nice. That's warm. It's warm and fuzzy. That's 2 IPA buzzy. If you've had an Oregon IPA, it only takes 2. Hey, it's Brendan O'Mara, and this is the Creative Nonfiction Podcast, the show where I talk to badass writers, filmmakers, and producers about the art and craft of telling true stories. Today's guest is Vlad Yudin, a Russian-born documentary filmmaker best known for the trilogy of Generation Iron bodybuilding films, which I believe at least 2 of them are on Netflix. His Vladar company makes and produces lots of films in the fitness business, and we unpack a lot of what makes him a particularly free spirit when it comes to his filmmaking. A little warning here, alright? This might be a little off-putting to some of you, and to some extent it is to me as well, but I'm giving you a heads up because I love you. And I'm giving you this heads up because this is what I plan to do going forward. You ready? Okay. I'm going to start courting mid-roll ad reads. Not too long, not too obtrusive, I hope, but when you hear the start of this new riff, courtesy of Wheatman on Audio Jungle, you'll know you're in for a little plug of some kind. Cue it up. Today is a house ad for my monthly newsletter. So I'm not going to say anything here. I will let the ad do the talking. It's only like 35 seconds long. I need to subsidize the show in new and creative ways, especially since I got shit canned from the day job last week. So as I'm going forward, I might be, I'm really working on setting up a Patreon thing, so the more listener supported the show is, the more ads I can take off the actual recording of the show. In which case it'll be more seamless, and we'll get to the meat of the things that you've come to really enjoy about the show. But until then, like I said, it's it's something I gotta do. NASCAR cars go around the track, and there's not a single spot on those cars that's not taken up by some sort of an ad. So, helps pay for the whole enterprise. So, okay, now that that's out of the way, be sure to subscribe to the show, iTunes, Spotify, Google Play Music, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, and hand it off like a triangular folded up note that you did back in high school. Hand to hand. Shout out to Sybil Baker of episode 35 fame, a great writer, great author, who made a similar recommendation of the show to someone who didn't know about it. It was on Twitter, and she tagged the show at CNFPod, at Brendan O'Mara. That's what you should do. So I knew to engage. And that was really nice. That's what we need, hand to hand. Rage against the algorithm, man. You're the social network. Okay, and now, batting second. Discover your story. Bay Path University, founded in New England, the New England, in 1897, is the first and only university to offer a no residency, fully accredited MFA, focusing exclusively on creative nonfiction. Attend full or part-time from anywhere in the world. In the Bay Path MFA, you'll find small online classes and a dynamic and supportive community. You'll master the techniques of good writing from acclaimed authors and editors, learn about publishing and teaching through professional internships, and complete a master's thesis that will form the foundation for your memoir or collection of personal essays. Special elective courses include contemporary women's stories, travel and food writing, family histories, spiritual writing, and an optional week-long summer residency in Ireland with guest writers including Andre Dubus III, Anne Hood, and Mia Gallagher, among others. Could be Maya, I'm not sure. Start dates in late August, January, and May. Find out more at baypath.edu/MFA. I don't know why, but I'm really out of breath after that one. Ugh. Get it together, Brendan. You can do this. Okay, so Vlad is here to talk about his journey as a filmmaker. It's pretty great. And how he carved out a niche, never know what that word, in a crowded industry. His independent spirit is paramount to him as a filmmaker, and also how he tries to keep things as objective as possible. So let's clear the deck for Vlad Yudin. What brought you to the States from Russia, and how'd you get into documentary film?
Well, I moved from Russia to the States in the 90s, basically. It was like 95, 96.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the time when basically Russia was, terrible conditions, for living and especially schooling, So I had to, my family made a decision for me to move over here for pursuit of a better life and most importantly, get into better schools and for career choices, basically. The 90s was just, a terrible time in Russia at the time. And it was a lot of things were collapsing, infrastructure and especially schooling. It just wasn't as good as it used to be before that, So it was really a decision for my career and life in general, I would say. And, I always had interest in film. Storytelling and so I went to school here and I eventually pursued my career in film and documentary film.
And how old were you when you came over here?
I was about 13 years old when I moved to the States. Yeah.
And what state did you move to?
New York.
Okay.
New York. I lived in New York, New Jersey, and New York basically. My whole life. Since I moved here. And now, I basically travel around the world, all over the States. And, we're still based in New York as a company and myself, but, we spend a lot of time in different cities. And, of course, California is one of the main places we spend a lot of time in now, now that we're in the film business and bodybuilding, of course, as well.
Yeah. And so what were some of the, you said you were into storytelling and then, of course, filmmaking. So what was that? How did you get the bug? What were some of those films maybe that made you want to pick up the camera and be a director yourself?
It's always been American cinema that inspired me. When I was growing up, I enjoyed films in different genres and I watched a lot of Russian films, a lot of films from Europe, France, Italian cinema, but I think American cinema definitely inspired me a lot. You know what I mean? Like the scale of it, just the whole kind of the style of making films. From action films to comedies to everything else. American definitely inspired me. The American culture always like really intrigued me.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that specifically American films inspired me to be in filmmaking. To be perfectly honest.
Was there a particular documentary you can point to that made you say like, oh, that specifically is kind of what I want to do when I grow up?
It's funny. I never when I was younger, I never really watched documentaries too much. It wasn't something that I was very interested in like that. And documentaries, I was primarily watching feature films. Documentaries, I think it's something that I enjoyed later on in life and sort of I developed appreciation for documentaries as I was watching them, a lot of different sports documentaries and in general, documentary is a tricky thing, because it's there's so many different things that can be called documentaries. You know what I mean? There's sports documentaries, then there's reality documentary. It can be documentary also, derives from documentary world basically. And then there's styles of documentaries, the way they're made. But, I definitely developed appreciation for it later. I can't really tell when I was young. I saw a documentary and I wanted to be a documentary filmmaker, you know what I'm saying?
Right. And when you were getting started, what were
Mhm.
some maybe early growing pains you experienced as you were as starting your career and starting your craft as a filmmaker?
I have a very independent spirit, and I still do to this day. And I'm just very blessed that, me, my company, my partners were able to remain independent and have that type of mentality. And and in the beginning, it was like when you're first starting out, you want to be noticed, or you want to be sort of like get a big break. You know what I mean? Like in any industry, wherever you're trying to get in.
Right.
And it's always very difficult. You know what I mean? In the film industry, I think it's very more difficult because it's not a clear path to success. I think, but with the independent, kind of like mentality, mindset, it was always, let's do it ourselves. Let's get these cameras. Let's try to come up with topics, and let's try to make projects basically on our own. That developed, I think, a very strong mindset and like thick skin, basically,
Mm-hmm.
to the point where today it actually helps us to make films that we want to make and to make them successful. And the growing pains is always how do you get the film, how you get it out there, who's going to watch it, like how you get people to watch it, but it's always the biggest challenge in the beginning. But, with our mindset, it made us stronger. And I think that really caused success later down the line, that type of mindset and going through these type of challenges made us, better in business of filmmaking, basically.
Mm. Where does that independent spirit come from that you spoke about, that you've been able to carry over to your film company and to make the films you like based on just your own taste?
I don't know, man. I don't know. I think it was in my DNA, probably.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and same as Ad's my partner. We just didn't want to work for anybody, really, and just kind of wanted to have that freedom. That doesn't mean we don't work hard. I feel like I work harder than anybody else in this industry. Um, but we just didn't want to have. I don't know. In my opinion, like this, like if I fail, I want to fail because of me, and I don't want to be like somebody else fail because somebody else tells me to do something. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
At the same time, if I want to succeed, I want to succeed because of us, because of my team, basically. I don't know. I think really just part of the DNA. I don't know how to explain it, man. Like it's difficult. It's difficult to give it like elaborate explanation. What caused it? I think it's just always been that mindset, But that doesn't mean I don't like working in the team or have partners, because we have a lot of partners, we have a lot of team members, and I love working in tandem with people. It's just the independence I feel like is so important, you know what I mean? Especially in today's world where, the filmmaking and digital and everything else allows you to do it. Now it's all about just competing and just trying to find a way to get the audience to watch your films.
What would you say was your first, just quotations around major, but like your
Mm-hmm.
first major success that showed you that you were on the right path and gaining momentum doing this thing you love doing?
It's definitely in steps, like kind of like stepping stones. You know what I mean? That we took. We started off making music documentaries. They made a first feature film called Last Day of Summer. That was in I think 2010. That was the first film we actually worked with Hollywood talent. I would say it was DJ Qualls and Nikki Reed from Twilight at the time. So we made William Sadler. Those are the people that have been seen in major films. So our first feature film called Last Day of Summer, and all those, and before that, we worked with Sony on music documentaries. We made a documentary on Big Pun, which is a major music star here in New York,
Mm-hmm.
and we always had kind of like distribution partners basically. But the first time I really felt good about what we're doing, like and to me it felt really great, is when we made the first Generation Iron film. In 2013, we released it fully independent, and that became one of the top grossing documentaries and one of the top indie films of 2013. And we did it fully independently, And that to me was a great accomplishment because they gave us courage to continue building a company, vertically integrated company, meaning that we control the production, distribution, marketing, and everything from the ground up. Where prior to that, we're really we're dependent on different other partners, distributors, and in many cases, sometimes you're not happy with that because if something goes wrong, you're sort of like in a limbo. So with the Generation Iron first film, 2013, it was a time where we felt really, really good about what we can do. Of course, it wasn't, all great after that. It was still a challenge. It was still a lot of challenges, and you had to like build a company more. But it was definitely a first time where we felt really good.
Well, what would you say is the nature of your particular hustle, not only on creative, but to get the funding you need and to put these things together? Because it's kind of a balance of that art and business.
Absolutely. I mean, the biggest challenge is always who's going to watch your films, right? Like, how are you going to get it to the people, right? How are you going to create an audience? Because, everybody wants to make films. All the independent filmmakers, they want to make films really badly. And they want to tell stories they want to tell. And then they put everything they have into like a project, let's say, right? And then it's time to get it out there, right? The most common way to get it out there is take it to a film festival and take it to another film festival, right? And try to build an audience that way. That's the most common way to do it. You know what I mean? It's for us, myself and my partner Edwin Mejia, we really wanted to build a company that makes films, releases films, and other programs, of course, other media programs. And so it was important for us to have a steady audience, a steady base that we had to grow. So after Generation 9 was released, we wanted to build Generation 9 Network, and really build an audience to where when we drop a new film, a new project, we have audience that's waiting for that to come out. You know what I mean?
Right.
So we invested a lot of effort, a lot of our resources into building the audience, and continue building it every year after that, to where we have our own sort of like a mini studio system. So where we can put the movies out and we have people waiting for it, because without that, you really, a lot of indie filmmakers are struggling every time you make a new film, you have to look for a distributor, you know what I mean? It just becomes, it's just a whole different type of business, and
right.
Unfortunately in today's world, when technology like allows everybody, like right now, anybody can be a filmmaker, right? Everybody can buy a camera and be a filmmaker. You can make a movie on your cell phone if you really want to, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So there's so much competition out there. There's YouTube, right? There's so much free content out there, right? So when somebody actually wants to, like, how do you convince somebody to actually buy it from you when there's so much free content, it becomes a challenge, and I feel like every filmmaker needs to find their niche or some kind of a way for it to be seen, basically.
Yeah, it's kind of what like the brilliant author and marketer Seth Godin says when he says, like, if you're going to be successful in this kind of age where there is so much content, not only that, but really good content, that you have to seek out essentially the smallest viable audience, and whatever that is. And it seems like you've been able to successfully carve out a great niche with the bodybuilding and fitness scene. What would you say came first? Were you into that, or did you just notice that there was this sort of subculture that lacked compelling storylines, and you're like, oh, if I just there's an audience baked in over there. If I take my talent to that audience, I can make a living. I can do the work I want to do.
Yeah, basically after the first Generation Iron film, we got into the fitness industry. We saw there was a big void in the fitness industry specifically. We saw that it's a great industry, but it's in a media space, there was nobody there yet, right? So just to give you a quick background, Joe Weider was the revolutionary media man, and also, a man that really created the fitness industry in this country. In the 60s and 70s, he built it up. He made the magazines, he made the federations, he made the competitions. He was really the man, that really created this industry here. And then when we came in the industry in 2013, that's basically There was no media really. There was just, because Joe Weider sold his magazines and they weren't real. They were just basically print. You know what I mean? It was print magazines. It was some blogs here and there, but it wasn't really like a media channel. You know what I mean? For bodybuilding and fitness. So we saw a big void in that space, and we right away started building our audience from the first film. And we saw that we can revolutionize this, the media space in this industry. And that's what we started working on. Now, of course, when you come into any industry, from outside, basically, you can't just start, you know what I mean? It's not just about throwing money at it, really. You have to kind of build, you have to be authentic, and you have to build the right team around you, So we focused on bringing the right people on board. And, it took years to really, build a network up. So we launched the Generation Iron Fitness Network, GenerationIron.com, basically, which is, to put it in simple words, is basically kind of like the Vice channel meets bodybuilding and fitness. So it's a publishing platform. It's an original content platform. It has, all the news, the latest news, latest original content that we create for free. And of course, it's also a mini studio for the releases of original films that we're creating every year now. So it took time and it took a lot of effort, but we were able to build it every year more and more, to where now it became a leading platform in the space. And for us, it was the major thing that we wanted to create for this industry, because fitness industry, it's kind of complex. Because if you look at competitive bodybuilding, it's very niche, and it's very, and it's very, very, I would say, small compared to the fitness overall,
Right.
Fitness overall, of course, because of social media, became very big right now. But it's still, it's competitive fitness bodybuilding is different from just the mainstream body fitness. People just want to work out. Everybody wants to work out nowadays, but we try to cater towards everybody in the fitness. But of course, the bodybuilding fans and the core audience of ours are people that really, want to live the lifestyle and want to learn more about the lifestyle,
Hey, what is the meaning of this? Well, I want to say that this episode is also brought to you by my monthly newsletter. Oh yeah, that's right. On the first of the month, you can get a tasty bit of goodness sent right to your inbox. My reading recommendations for the month and what you might have missed from the world of the podcast. Visit BrendanO'Mara.com. Once a month, no spam, can't beat it. Now back to the show. The bodybuilding industry, especially the crew that you were essentially following in the first film, it's and those IFBB pros, it's a pretty insular and almost secretive community, and they struggle to want mainstream coverage, but at the same time, if mainstream coverage comes to them, they kind of wall off. They're a bit distrustful. So
yeah.
So how did you what was your approach to gain trust to get that close to these, the heavyweights of the IFBB circuit?
It's a good question. I think in many ways they wanted the exposure in a sense, they wanted to be heard. And the first Generation Iron film, believe it or not, was very well received by just people that didn't know anything about bodybuilding in general. We got so many letters and phone calls and emails just from people rediscovering bodybuilding. Because prior to Generation Iron, the only other movie really that highlighted bodybuilding was Pumping Iron.
Right.
That was released in 1978, I believe. And we actually co-produced Generation Iron, the first film, with a producer of Pumping Iron, Jerome Gary. But the trust, it's once we started having conversations and filming, they definitely, it's a connection. You know what I mean? Like you always connect with the subject in a way. But at the same time, it's always a challenge because you can't become best friends with the subject of the documentary, because you have to make it objective. I like to make my films really objective. I like for the audience to make a decision whether they, what they like about the character, or what they don't like about the character. I like to present an objective point of view I don't like to make Michael Moore style documentaries where it's just one sided. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And he makes great films, but it's always a one side to a story. You know, what I like to do is make at least highlight, enough on both sides for the people to make their decisions for themselves. You know, so I
Right.
can become best friends with these guys, but at the same time, I can just tell them, whatever we film is what we film. And you tell me, I ask you the questions that I think should be asked, and you answer them how you want to answer them. And of course, not everybody's gonna be happy with everything. We've made so many films in the last 3 years. Different subject matters in bodybuilding, and somebody's always unhappy with the portrayal or something. But we always try to make it as objective as possible, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I think you do that particularly well with the Ronnie Coleman documentary. Also, because he was,
Yeah.
this eight, he's such a great figure, but you could also be very critical of the way he treated his body during his competitive prime, which ultimately led to how much his body has broken down over the years. So you do show that side of his peers being critical. I mean, they're reverent, but they're also critical of, did this guy really need to be deadlifting 800 pounds 2 weeks before the Olympia? You're like, that's just not really smart. And
Right.
so I think that's a perfect illustration of what you're getting at, of just kind of laying out two sides here, because you could have easily just, put him up on the pedestal and just did a 90-minute documentary just worshiping the guy.
Yeah, it's the Ronnie one it's an interesting film because I told him before we made the film. I told him, if we're gonna do this, we have to you have to give us access to your life currently, and
Mm-hmm.
show us how you live and show us the surgeries and things you go through on a daily basis and stuff like that. And he agreed to it. And it's so funny because when we were making the because I know Ronnie from before, so
Mm-hmm.
I knew he was on crutches. I knew he went through multiple surgeries, and people in the bodybuilding industry also kind of knew about it, But so when we were making the film, it was kind of like, I took it every day, like, okay, because I saw him like this already before, it wasn't like a shocking thing to me. And then when the movie came out, and like people were shocked by it because they never saw like a concise piece like that on Ronnie.
Yeah.
And then some people for the first time saw him on crutches like that in the surgery, and then we're just like, everybody was shocked. And some people were so disturbed by it they couldn't even finish the film. They told me, but yeah, and to me it was like, oh, I was kind of surprised because I kind of assumed that people would just take it as it is. But yeah, it was shocking to a lot of people seeing. Ronnie like this, currently in the present time, going through what he's going through. But that was a case where it was very important to get access, what I mean, to him, what I mean, and it was very important for us to come to that agreement, for us to be able to film all that.
And in this, part of the reason why I kind of like the bodybuilding culture is the monastic drive and focus that the men and women have for their discipline. I'd even extend that to ballet, and anyone who has
Mm-hmm.
these singular focuses. I really love following those people. And would you say that that's a big reason why you're attracted to this particular sort of niche of your filmmaking, because of that singular focus?
To me, it's something that I still want to discover more and more every year. The drive of the bodybuilding athletes in that industry. I would say it's probably the most unrewarding sport, on a financial level. When it comes to the specifically competitive bodybuilding I'm talking about,
Mm-hmm.
is the most, when I say the most difficult, is I believe that because just, it's a very tough sport mentally and physically. And really, you're being judged based on your look, right? I mean, you're being judged on a specific criteria, but it's based on the look of how you look, right? So you constantly being judged on your body, basically, right? So like, it takes a toll on you. You have through constant changes, and in bodybuilding, of course, for those who don't know, it's you go through phases. You know what I mean? Like right before the competition, everything's changing. There's off season, on season, and it's just a constant thing. And to me, it's always, I'm learning something every year about the mentality of what they go through. Um, and and sometimes, bodybuilders differ from each other. Some are more dedicated, some are less. Because of genetics, some can get away with more, some can get away with less, and everybody has different mentality. And for me, the excitement is kind of learning the differences. And every project we do, I learn something else. So it's
Yeah, and something that I've always found a bit problematic with professional bodybuilding is it's not that the performance enhancers, the steroids or HGH and whatever diuretics they need to take to dehydrate their body
Mhm.
and get a nice grainy look for the stage. It's what always kind of bugged me was the fact that's never really acknowledged. Yet these guys are kind of the face of nutritional companies, and they kind of say like, if you take this, you'll look like me. But they are also pumping themselves full, a laboratory's worth of chemicals. And I wonder if you personally, as a storyteller, an objective storyteller in this world, if that's something that is hard for you to reconcile as you tell these guys' stories.
No, it's not difficult for me. I mean, because you can make the same analogy to life in general. You know what I mean? Like you have professional athletes from every sport promoting something, endorsing something, right?
Right.
I mean, you don't know what they take in behind the closed doors. That's first of all. But secondly, we just made a film actually called Enhanced. It's number two documentary in the country right now. You can check it out on iTunes. It's called Enhanced. It's about a character named Tony. His name is Dr. Tony Huge. You should check it out if you didn't see it yet. But
Yeah, I haven't seen it yet.
this is the guy that's basically the opposite of that, right? This is the guy. He's not a professional bodybuilder, but he's like he calls himself the pioneer of the human evolution.
Mm-hmm.
And he basically is actively promoting different steroids, different substances. He's experimenting with pretty much every substance in the world, and his goal is to. He thinks the steroids and all types of different substances are meant to help people in general, not just in bodybuilding, but in general. So it's all the opposite of, because normally, obviously, when you make a bodybuilding movie, right, bodybuilders, they don't necessarily want to talk about this stuff, right? Because it can affect their endorsements, they can affect their, it's just something you don't talk. It's like any other, like you don't see a baseball documentary and they talk about steroids, right? You don't see that.
Right.
It's just something you don't necessarily mention. But with this film, it's all about that, and it's a different approach on things. He's like 100% honest, or he claims to be honest, and it looks quite shocking because of how open he is, basically. But it's like a different take on that. He's in the fitness industry, and he is all about promoting steroids, and he claims that steroids should be taken by everybody for different reasons, of course. And not just steroids, but like this, obviously when we say steroids, I mean like there's like hundreds of different compounds,
Right.
And he's actively explaining and promoting it in film, and of course we have his critics that criticize him for that, and it's an interesting dynamic. So that film kind of covers that. But me personally, your question was originally, do I feel conflicted with that? I don't, because we do cover. Steroids in various films, different in various forms. But I never feel conflicted because ultimately, it's just life. You know what I mean? Some people will talk about it, some people won't talk about it. And that's not just bodybuilding, but that's just every single sport and every single, whatever else is there that people, that people participate in, whether they want to talk about it or not.
Right. And so with Generation Iron, the first one, follows this sort of what's the word? Like kind of a cohort of bodybuilders going to the Olympia.
Mm-hmm.
Second one really focuses on social media and those fitness stars. And your third film, it's kind of that striving for excellence versus perfection and whether that's good or bad. Would you say that the third one, like that's the conclusion of a Generation Iron trilogy, or is this something you keep building on going forward?
Well, as a Generation Nine network, we make, last year we made 4 films, released 4 films. This year it's going to be, I think, 4 or 5 films. So under the umbrella of Generation Nine, we're gonna make many films.
Mm-hmm.
Some are kind of like biopic, like Ronnie Coleman. We're making a movie about Dorian Yates right now, which is a legendary
Oh
bodybuilder.
yeah.
So there's going to be various films under the umbrella of Generation Nine. As far as Generation Nine title as a film, as a trilogy, we made a trilogy, and that's supposed to be basically it, unless something comes in that would fit the genre, and we'll expand on it. But as of now, this is a trilogy that was completed, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
And now we're focusing on a variety of other films under the umbrella of Generation Nine.
And what would you say is your greatest driving motivation these days?
Well, right now, the biggest motivation is the fact that we're able to build a Generation 9 fitness network, and we're able to reach a lot of people, and we're able to give people content that they want to see that they can't see anywhere else. That's sort of like the responsibility and the focus of today's mission that we're on. It's something that we are able to deliver for the audience, and we have to make sure that we continue to do so and make sure to cater to them, because ultimately they can't find it anywhere else. We know that we're the ones providing it for them. So it's a big responsibility, but it's also a big motivation for us to keep going forward and make sure that, people are not only, like just get everything catered to them, what necessarily they expect to see, but also give them something unexpected and open up their minds more. And this is why we make films like Enhanced, something completely different, something from the Generation 9 series, let's say, and continue to, to give them things to open up their minds basically more, but do it in a way where it's, it's quality, and they feel good about watching it basically at the end.
So these days, who would you say is your favorite bodybuilder? And that could be a historic one or a current one, but like, who is someone you look up to in the bodybuilding world and be like, oh yeah, that guy, that man or woman's got it figured out?
I don't know, man. Honestly, I don't look up to anybody in general in life. I don't want to sound arrogant. I just, I don't know. I just don't look up. You know what I mean? Like, it's just something I don't really look up to people. But there's the people that are really like intrigued by right now, I would say, is Dorian Yates. That's why we're making a movie about him right now. Dorian Yates actually has a very interesting past. I don't know how much you know about him, but he's from UK, and he won 6 Mr. Olympia titles back in the 90s, and very interesting storyline, because when he was young, he was a skinhead in UK, right? He was a skinhead actually. Then he became a bodybuilder. Then he became sort of like, he always was like, when he was a skinhead, he was always into Jamaican culture, right? So it's very interesting that he was able to kind of like combine both and have both things influence him. It's very, very strange. And then after he retired from bodybuilding, he had a very interesting kind of like life altering experience. And now he's heavily into marijuana. He's kind of like a hippie, he lives in Spain, on the coast of Spain, and he's sort of like does yoga and stuff like that. You know what I mean? He's a very interesting guy.
Yeah.
And this movie we're making about him is going to be very, very, different from everything else we've done, because he's so interesting. But what made him very special in bodybuilding, that he was kind of like the first mass monster. So before him, bodybuilders were kind of like more slimmer and more just had different type of physiques. When he came in, he was like this huge brolic bodybuilder, and he kind of like in many ways changed bodybuilding to where it became more about size after him. So like Ronnie Coleman came after him, right? And he was kind of like had to take his body even further. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So Dorian Yates was the guy that really changed bodybuilding and kind of like pushed in the direction of size. It's very interesting. And, that's one of the historical figures, But the other guy that I'm always intrigued about, I'm always excited about working with, is Kai Green.
Yeah.
From Brooklyn, New York. This is the guy that's very different from any other bodybuilder, that I know, because there's so many different layers to him. artistic. He's artistic. He's obviously a great bodybuilder, accomplished, but also just like he always creates a lot of excitement from people all over the world when they meet him. It's very intellectual, very like I said, artistic. He paints, he does art, he does comic books, and just conversing with him all the time is very interesting because so many topics we always talk about, and work closely with him on different projects. So definitely always intrigues me and in some ways inspires me as well.
Absolutely. And Vlad, lastly, where can people get more familiar with you and your work online and find you online if they want to get more familiar with your work?
Absolutely. I encourage everybody to go to generationiron.com to find out all our original content, films, and really just, for your audience, whoever's listening to you, if they just want to learn about bodybuilding culture or get the daily news about bodybuilding and fitness, or just get maybe advice about how to work out and stuff like that, you know what I mean? They can go to that website and they can see a lot of great information.
Fantastic. And when the Dorian Yates documentary comes out, we'll have to have you back on the show to talk about that and a little bit more of your process to filmmaking too.
Let's do it, man. I look forward to it.
Fantastic. Vlad, thanks for the time, and we'll be in touch down the road, man.
Thank you so much, Brandon. Good talking to you, man.
You too. Take care. Hey, do you like that? You dig the show? You dig the new heavy metal there in the middle of the show? I mean, any chance to riff charge this beast, I'm gonna do it. Name another podcast of this kind that sends you into the mosh pit. I dare you. Anyway, thank you to our sponsors, Goucher College's MFA Nonfiction and Bay Path University's MFA in Creative Nonfiction. And also my newsletter. Hey! Thanks to Vlad, and thanks to you for listening. Be sure to subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts, the usual places, and head over to BrendanO'Mara.com for show notes and the newsletter. Keep the conversation going on Twitter @BrendanO'Mara and @CNFPod, on Instagram @CNFPod, and on Facebook, Creative Nonfiction Podcast. Got you covered. We're all in this crazy mess together, man. So let's just keep working, keep making good stuff. And remember, if you can do, interview. See ya.